Every year after the Oscars, people commiserate over their collective grief of, who didn't win that they think should have won. And this year's biggest disappointment for a lot of people seems to be Demi Moore not taking home Oscar Gold for The Substance. Do I care? Not really. I mean, it was a good performance, but it's not like Meryl Streep didn't win for Sophie's Choice, or like Robert De Niro got denied for Raging Bull. It's a good performance by Moore, but when you've seen as many movies as I have, there are other non-winners in Oscar history that chafe just a bit more. So let's get right into it. Here are my top 5 actors who never walked away with Oscar Gold. First up for me would be Barbara Stanwyck, one of my favorite actresses in all of cinema, and she never once walked away with an Academy Award, even though she absolutely should have at some point in her career. But probably the biggest chance she ever had was in 1937 for Stella Dallas. It is one of the great performances of the 1930s. She absolutely should have taken an Oscar home for it, but instead, the Academy opted to give it to Louise Reiner for her yellow-faced performance in The Good Earth. Look, Louise Reiner was a good actress. She was, but she was no Barbara Stanwyck. Now, Stanwyck lost again for another great performance when she lost for Double Indemnity, 1944. But at least in that year, Ingrid Bergman, who won for Gaslight, gave an extraordinary performance. So I can't really be that upset about Barbara Stanwyck not winning that year. However, in 1948, she gave another great performance in Sorry, Wrong Number and lost to Jane Wyman for Johnny Belinda, which just isn't a very impressive performance. Barbara Stanwyck, she would go on to take supporting roles and then television roles and things like The Big Valley, but the one thing she never walked away with was an Oscar for Best Actress. Next up, Irene Dunne. I love Irene Dunne, and it conveniently takes us right back to 1937, when Irene Dunne was nominated for The Awful Truth, in which she gives a great, fantastic, amazing comedic performance, and lost to Louise Reiner for the yellow face thing. Irene Dunne would go on to give other terrific performances in everything from Theodora Goes Wild to I Remember Mama, but she never walked away with an Academy Award. Now let's get into some of the guys. Peter O'Toole. The first time he was nominated was for his debut movie, Lawrence of Arabia, 1962, and that's the year that Gregory Peck won for To Kill a Mockingbird. Most people would be like, oh, well, that's one of the great legendary performances, though, right? But you know what? I'm not most people. I like Gregory Peck in To Kill a Mockingbird. He's very stoic and delivers all his lines very stoically. And he does a really good job, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't come close to the majesty of Peter O'Toole's performance in Lawrence of Arabia. It really doesn't. And when you think about Cliff Robertson winning for the 1968 film Charlie, in which, again, he does a good job, but oh my God, if you've seen Lion in Winter, you know that Peter O'Toole just chews up the scenery in the best way possible. He could have won for pretty much anything he was ever in, quite frankly. Peter O'Toole is, for my money, one of the greatest actors in the history of cinema. I can't even believe he never won an Oscar. Next up for me would be Richard Burton. Not because I'm the biggest fan in the world. He did have a great voice, though, huh? But there were a few times he was nominated where he absolutely got robbed. Now, 1966, he lost to Paul Scofield for A Man for All Seasons. Richard Burton was up for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and I could see that one going either way. That one doesn't bother me too much. But in 1977, Richard Burton received a nomination for, quite frankly, a pretty goddamn great performance in the play adaptation Equus, and he lost to Richard Dreyfuss for The Goodbye Girl. Look, I like Richard Dreyfuss. I love him as Hooper in Jaws. I love him in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, also 1977, and a much better performance than The Goodbye Girl that he was nominated and won for. The Goodbye Girl is fine. It's one of those movies that you see it on TV and you watch it and you think, well, that was okay. And it also hasn't dated particularly well. A large part of the performance is kind of making fun of gay people. There's a whole joke in there about a director directing Richard Dreyfuss, who's playing an actor in the movie in Richard III, and he wants Richard III to be played as a gay man. And Richard Dreyfuss does a really over-the-top kind of a stereotypical gay man performance. It doesn't hold up very well, is what I'm trying to say here. And Richard Burton's performance in Equus does hold up. Now, at the time, Burton was expected to take away the Oscar, and it was a real shock when Richard Dreyfuss walked away with it instead. To this day, I don't quite understand what the hell happened there. I just know that Richard Burton really should have taken home the gold. And that brings me to number 5. Now, I just want to say there are so many that never got awards, from Rosalind Russell to Joseph Cotten to Marilyn Monroe. Cotten and Monroe, they weren't even nominated ever. Forget winning. They never even got a nod. They got nothing. So there's plenty. Deborah Kerr, another great one who never walked away with an Oscar. There are so many you could do in like a 5-hour long video of actors that didn't walk away with an Oscar. But for me, number 1, the one that really, really chafes is Peter Sellers. Never getting one, despite giving one of the single greatest comedic performances in movie history in Dr. Strangelove from 1964. That year, Rex Harrison, a terrific actor, won Best Actor for My Fair Lady. Now, he does a really good job playing Henry Higgins. He does. I'm not saying he doesn't. What I'm saying, though, whether it's Leslie Howard playing Henry Higgins in Pygmalion or Rex Harrison playing Henry Higgins in My Fair Lady, the main issue I've always had with George Bernard Shaw's Pygmalion character, Henry Higgins, from an acting standpoint, there's not a lot going on with Henry Higgins. He's kind of a smug jerk, and at the end, he's a smug jerk still, but he loves Eliza. Rex Harrison does a good job playing that. He plays a smug jerk really well, and does a good job with kind of talk singing his way through the numbers. But holy crap, if you've ever seen what Peter Sellers accomplished in Dr. Strangelove, what he accomplished playing the president, the whole scene of him on the phone with the Soviet premier is one of the greatest timed comedic telephone calls you will ever see, considering that obviously it's a movie, there's nobody on the other end of the phone. It's like a masterclass of how you do a performance of talking to somebody on the phone. And then you've got him playing Dr. Strangelove. You got him playing the British Colonel Mandrake. It's an incredible performance. He was going to be playing the Slim Pickens role too, but because of some complications, he couldn't end up doing it. But that's fine. Slim Pickens was terrific in the role anyway, so it worked out. But I consider Peter Sellers' performance in Dr. Strangelove one of the all-time greats. I can't even believe that Rex Harrison beat him for that one. So if you're upset about Demi Moore not winning for The Substance, take heart. There have been some real disasters in Oscar history before that. There have been plenty of times where not only did the actor deserving not walk away with the Oscar, but the performance they gave is one of the greatest in cinematic history. That's all I got this time. Join me again. If you liked it, please hit like and subscribe. It helps the channel. And as always, if you're driving, drive safely.